how do you gain this spiritual knowledge of the difference between matter and spirit and the difference between the soul and the super soul? How do we gain that knowledge? So Krishna is speaking these 5 verses, the process through which, by developing those qualities and following those processes, we will develop knowledge. And I'm giving a disclaimer. These verses are speaking about Jnana Yoga. So we might, like even you see Prabhupada also may customize it for Bhakti practitioners, and we may try to take lessons from it for Bhakti practitioners. But please understand, not all of these things are very common to, though externally they might look like they are common with Bhakti Yoga, the way it is applied is very different. Because we are speaking about Jnana Yoga section. Jnana Yoga means first step is you have to take renunciation and go to forest. That is, after that everything follows. So we are speaking about Jnana Yoga. So when we speak of these qualities, please keep it in mind that we are speaking a process through which a Jnana Yoga practitioner can gain knowledge. We are not just speaking about a generic spiritual process, or we are not speaking about Bhakti Yoga. That is why there will be certain emphasis for certain values will be given in this list, and I will take it up as they come. However, we also approach this from a perspective of what can we learn from this? How can I apply it in my life? But there are certain things which we will not be able to apply exactly, because this is for a Jnana Yogi who has given up everything and going and sitting in the forest. So there will be some differences. So no need to confuse. These are not the requirements for Bhakti Yoga. These are the requirements for Jnana Yoga. So hope that is clear at the outset. And would anyone like to read the translation of the verse?
Can I ask why he mentions them if they are not the requirements? Is it to answer his question? Is to answer Judas' questions?
Can you come again? I could not hear you well.
I'm sorry. So does he if they're for Jnana Yoga, why is Krishna giving us this information?
Because Arjuna asked about that process.
Yes. Okay.
Because what Krishna has wanted to speak, he has already spoken in the first 10 chapters. And Arjuna has literally said, whatever you have said, I accept in 10th chapter. So these are more like Q&A, that whatever was spoken about but did not get elaborated, or whatever Arjuna know already but wanted to understand the context, how to understand those concepts. It's like more of a Q&A after the main talk. So Arjuna spoke this, like asked these questions specifically. That's why Krishna is bothering to explain those things. And what I asked was, can someone read those 20 qualities, the translations?
Yes, I can read, Prabhuji.
Please.
Humility, pridelessness, nonviolence, tolerance, simplicity, approaching a bona fide spiritual master, cleanliness, steadiness, self-control, renunciation of the objects of sense gratification, absence of false ego, the perception of the evil of birth, death, old age, and disease, detachment, freedom from entanglement with children, wife, home, and the rest, even-mindedness amid pleasant and unpleasant events, constant and unalloyed devotion to me, aspiring to live in a solitary place, detachment from the general mass of people, accepting the self and philosophical search for the absolute truth. All these I declare to be knowledge. And besides this, whatever there may be is ignorance.
Just by reading the translation, do you have any questions? Do you have any observations?
I can see how it definitely is someone who leaves the family life and goes into the forest. Now I understand this.
You see all the qualities from that lens, it makes much more sense.
Yes.
Any other observations, any other thoughts? Why am I spending so much time on the translation is, a lot will be clear when we spend time with this translation. And then whatever I speak can be like a more of a detail. That's why we are trying to look at the thing. Any observations?
Yes, Krishna. I like the fact where Krishna makes it very clear that these are what he declares to be knowledge. Everything, whatever they may be, is ignorance. So it's
ignorance. True. Any other observation? Why is that quality is here? Do you all see, means you all see bhakti in there, right?
Yes, the idea of humility and approaching a spiritual master.
That is all there. But I'm saying directly, there is directly bhakti is counted as a process of knowledge? Why do you think so? Here, bhakti is counted as like, for a bhakti yogi, bhakti is the only process. But for a jnana yogi, bhakti is one of the processes. They use it more like a ladder, and a rung in a ladder, where they use it to achieve something. It's not their only goal. Devotion is not their goal. They use it and abandon it when they actually get their goal. So that's the difference between their attitude towards bhakti. Even if a jnana yogi practices externally what looks like a devotion, that is because they use devotion as a stepping stone to achieve Brahman realization sometimes. So that is why it is qualitatively different. Even if you go to, what to speak of Brahmavadis, even if you go to Mayavadi ashrams, you might see a deity, and they may even worship Radha and Krishna. They may worship all kinds of Vishnu deities, and their idea would be that me and the deity are same. This is not proper. This is a not a bona fide idea. But there are people who do that. They think, currently I have not realized my divinity, so I'll worship this deity. When I achieve divinity, I'll realize I am same as this deity. And that is considered a very offensive attitude. No, they say, I was an atheist until I realized I am God. So that is the stupidity of it, because if you are God, you don't need to forget you're God. You won't be covered. So that's a complete different topic. I don't want to complicate further. But the reason Bhakti Yoga is here, this is proper Jnana Yoga. This is bona fide. How still these people use little bit Bhakti to achieve their end, because there needs some Bhakti to achieve perfection in Karma Yoga and Jnana Yoga. That is why we see Bhakti is counted as a process of knowledge here. Okay. So would you guys like to read the purport with me for this?
Prabhuji, I just had a question.
Okay.
So is what you explained right now, is it because of that it is not mentioned here that the knowledge is we are the soul and not this body? Because until that has been our definition of knowledge.
Come again. What is not mentioned here?
Until now, our definition of knowledge has been that we are the soul, not this body.
Hmm?
So, since that is not mentioned here directly, the explanation that you just gave, is that the reason why it is not mentioned?
No, the reason this particular verse is speaking about how to gain that knowledge.
The knowledge that we are the soul, how to gain
Yes,
that.
and we are the soul, we are not the body, and we are different from the super soul.
Okay.
How to understand those things? These are the processes. If you follow, you will get that knowledge.
Okay, I get it. Thank you.
Okay. So let's read a little bit of the purport. I know it throws off our style of teaching when we start reading the purport, but I would think this is a very nice purport, very important. So we can spend some time, like reading Prabhupada purports has its own effect. So would anyone like to quickly read through the first paragraph of the purport?
Yeah,
If
sure.
any of you don't have a physical copy, you can pull up online, vedabase.io. If you need a link, let us know. I can post the link on the chat.
You want me to read, Prabhu?
Yeah, anyone. Yes, bro, please.
This process of knowledge is sometimes misunderstood by less intelligent men as being the interaction of the field of activity. But actually, this is a real process of knowledge. If one accepts this process, then the possibility of approaching the absolute truth exists. This is not the interaction of the 24 elements as described before. This is actually the means to get out of the entanglement of those elements. Embodied soul is entrapped by the body, which is a casing made of the 24 elements, and the process of knowledge as described here is the means to get out of it. Of all the descriptions of the process of knowledge, the most important point is described in the first line of the 11th verse. The process of knowledge terminates in unalloyed devotional service to the Lord. So, if one does not approach or is not able to approach the transcendental service of the Lord, then the other 19 items are of no particular value. But if one takes to devotional service in full Krishna consciousness, the other 19 items automatically develop, as stated in Srimad 5.18.12. All the good qualities of knowledge develop in one who has attained the stage of devotional service. The principle of accepting a spiritual master, as mentioned in the 8th verse, is essential. Even for one who takes to devotional service, it is most important. Transcendental life begins when one accepts a bona fide spiritual master. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, clearly states here that this process of knowledge is the actual path. Anything speculated beyond this is nonsense.
Okay, bro, we can stop there. Thank you, bro. Some of my observation in this is one point I really find interesting is this is not the interaction of the 24 elements as described before. So Prabhupada is connecting that in the previous verse 6 and 7, there were some emotions explained there. Dvesh, Sangha. So there were some emotion that were mentioned in the previous verse. So somebody may say if those emotions are all like of the field, they are all changes in the field, then how is humility, tolerance, these things are like spiritual? That is also an emotion, right? Humility is also an emotion and it's a change in the field. But how is it this comes under knowledge and those things does not come under knowledge? Do you get the question, that connection that Prabhupada is making? So he's saying this is not the interaction of the 24 elements. This is actually the means to get out of the entanglement, because these qualities can help us get out of the entanglement, that identification with body and ego, basically. And like with Purva, we were discussing in the sage groups also, like how when you start observing the mind, that means what? You are living on the level of the soul. When you're seeing the world through the mind, that's one stage of consciousness. But when you start seeing the mind, that's a different level of consciousness. So similarly, these emotions are not just the interactions of the field, they actually help one get out of the entanglement. Does that make sense?
And probably they lead us to the Shuddha.
Yes, gradually. So this is actually the means to get out of the entanglement of those elements. And so Prabhupada is writing, the embodied soul is entrapped by the body, which is a casing made of the 24 elements. And the process of knowledge described here is the means to get out of it. That is a connection between the previous verses and this verse. Does that make sense? Okay. So I think though I'm like super eager to read the purport, let's start discussing and then connect with the purport. I'll pull up the relevant sections of the purport as it comes when we are reading, because I don't think we will get anywhere if I start reading the full purport today. But surely I'll pull up the relevant sections as we are going through the slides. Okay. Until now, any questions? Is it confusing? Is it overwhelming? I need to hear some voices in the room.
It's fine, Prabhu.
Okay. Other than
Sorry.
I'm just saying.
I just have a question. I'm getting a little confused because you said, oh gosh, what did you say? Okay, these are the processes to understanding. Okay, so this whole section is to get us to understand that we are not the body, but the soul.
And there is a difference between the soul and the super soul.
Okay.
No, the super soul.
And I guess I just got confused a little bit now because you said these are speaking of Jnana yoga. But in the purport, that is talking about accepting a spiritual master is essential. I guess.
Even if you're a Jnana yogi, you have to accept a spiritual master.
Okay, gotcha.
Today, knowledge is about information. So if you know, you can ask Google, you can ask ChatGPT, you can ask so many other artificial intelligence apps. They can give us information. That information alone is not called as knowledge, because that information gets into our mind and intelligence. But only when the intelligence actually refines our heart and actually helps us get out of the entanglement of the leads to liberation, then that can be called as knowledge. That's why Krishna is calling everything else as
Ignorance.
there are 20 qualities. The verse is listing humility and prideless. Prabhupada also speaks about, what do you think is the difference between humility and pridelessness? Are they not the same?
I think maybe humility is knowing that when you're good at something and accepting it without showing it off. And then pridelessness is, of course, not showing off. I think prideless people, sometimes they think that they can do a lot of things and in fact they can't. So it's like that. They're proud of things that they cannot actually do.
Thank you. Perfect. You finally nailed that. The last sentence you said is what is called as damba. Means there is something called as mana and damba. There are two different things. One is, I know I have some talents and I'm proud about it. That is called as pride. But I don't even have a talent and I brag about as if I have it. That's called as damba. That's called vanity. That is almost like hypocrisy. So that is the difference between the word amanitvam and adambit. Amanitvam means don't show off what you have. Adambitvam, don't show off what you don't have. So because it is completely cheating. Adamba is basically just making us look big. That's why I wrote, let go of the need to look big to grow big. Is we a lot of times we want to show ourselves as someone big in order to gain respect. So that is called as adambitvam, means damba is like we want to show ourselves too big so that people can respect us. But actually, in order to really grow into a spiritually bigger person, that we need to let go of that need to look big. And the other two qualities are non-violence and tolerance. And it's very interesting to note Prabhupada how he defines humility here is the humility means that one should not be anxious to have the satisfaction of being honored by others. It's a kind of a same principle. Being too anxious to be honored by others is a problem. So that creates too much anxiety. That's why Prabhupada is saying, no, don't be anxious. Naturally, some appreciation will come. And when it comes, we can be humble that how it's not that everything is our own effort. Krishna's grace is also there. So we can humbly, we can say it is our teacher's blessings. So there are many ways we could actually connect it with higher powers and feel humble about it and be grounded. At the same time, we don't need to be very anxious to be all the time appreciated by others, then it becomes a problem. I hope that makes sense. So the other quality is non-violence and tolerance. Basically, Prabhupada also says non-violence is basically helping. Non-violence is generally taken to mean not killing or destroying the body, but actually non-violence means not to put others into distress. Prabhupada says non-violence is not to put others into distress. So don't add to others' pain, help them heal. So non-violence and tolerance is helping them heal. We are not adding to it. We are tolerant about, even if there are some difficulties, we are trying to tolerate when dealing with others so that we can help them heal. At the same time, of course, don't go to the extremes. We don't need to be abused. Tolerance, like we can always use common sense. Those exceptions are always given. These days, it's very hard to speak on any topic because the extremes are immediately questioned. Oh, what if I'm abused by someone? My manager is abusive, my co-staff is abusive, my sibling is troublesome. All these kind of questions come. So we are considering all those exceptions. In any of these qualities or in any of these discussions, no extreme things are like accommodated. Exceptions are always included. I may not always mention those things, but assuming those things, it's all like within the boundary of common sense, we are discussing these qualities. So nobody needs to tolerate. And we are also speaking about a Jnana yogi who has taken to sannyas, who is going to the forest. So for him, on that level, even if somebody is abusive towards to him, he is seeing that he is trying to become, he don't want to get pulled into that mire of material existence. So he just tolerates. I don't care. I don't want to do anything with this world. Even if people are abusive, he will tolerate. So we are speaking about it in a different context. So these qualities are spoken for a Jnana yogi, and we are trying to take lessons for our life where we are living in cities and dealing with all kinds of people. So let us also understand how to learn lessons from this. At the same time, also understand in what context these qualities are being spoken about. Am I making sense? Does it help in approaching this list? So the understanding that I'm trying to give in this particular table is how we can apply this in our own life. But how a Jnana yogi will apply may slightly differ. Okay. So simplicity and self-control. And how Prabhupada is writing a purport is also how you and me as a bhakti yogi can apply these qualities. He is always not necessarily writing it from the perspective of a Jnana yogi. That's why I think Mother Indra might have got the doubts that she got after reading the first paragraph, because Prabhupada is speaking about Krishna consciousness directly. So that's why I'm giving a break from the purport and taking the relevant sections from the purport, because Prabhupada is approaching it exclusively from the perspective of how you and me as a Bhakti Yoga practitioner can take value from these verses. But we also need to recognize that the verse itself has a context and it is being spoken about a Jnana yogi. Prabhupada could not care less about these things. You and me are all struggling in the material world, conditioned for millions of lifetimes. If we take to bhakti, we will be relieved and we will eventually come to understand the technicalities of Bhagavad Gita. So he could not care less about the technicalities that Krishna is speaking about. All he wanted was he wanted you and me to be Krishna conscious. So he was like, it can, for a scholarly person, it could be very annoying. Like, you have ever seen, you let a person actually say something and they come with their own advertisement. If you're watching a YouTube video and suddenly this guy is promoting another product, it's a little irritating. Especially if it is like subtle and if they're trying to push, it is sometimes little irritating because you're here for a different purpose. So that's why scholarly people sometimes think, oh, why Prabhupada is writing about this? Krishna is not speaking this. Who cares? As far as Prabhupada is concerned, he is writing a book to make you and me into a bhakti yogi. He is very clear. If you are reading from the perspective of, oh, what Krishna is speaking is slightly different, again, the same thing, who cares? Prabhupada's motive is very clear. So that's why sometimes it may be confusing if you are not really seeing Prabhupada's motive. So he's having a higher motive. So he sometimes like glosses over what Krishna is trying to, in the context, what Krishna is saying in a particular context. Prabhupada couldn't care less. Cleanliness and steadiness. Keep your space clean inside and out. And for this Jnana Yogi also, cleanliness and steadiness, because steadiness is very important for a Jnana Yogi because he is going into the forest. He cannot have emotional hangover and he cannot miss, he cannot feel homesick. He cannot crave for potato chips and ginger beer. No, those things does not work. So he needs to have steady. That means he needs to have a clean mind. So that is why steadiness is very important for a Jnana Yogi. Here, for we are being as a Bhakti Yoga practitioner, unless our heart is not clean, we won't be steady in Bhakti. We will always get thrown off from the course of our practice. So many things will attract us, distract us, and tempt us. So that is why steadiness is also a very important quality. It speaks about internal cleanliness. Without being internally clean, we cannot be steady. And approaching a spiritual master, for a Jnana Yogi also, he needs to first take teachings from a spiritual teacher, and then based on that, he can continue to introspect and what we call as speculate, philosophical speculation. We have a bad connotation for the word speculation. However, philosophical speculation is contemplation. If you cannot contemplate on an empty mind, or basically we all see what we already, based on what we already know. Many times I see people come into the temple and they start interpreting everything going on there based on what they already know. And that's quite dangerous. Imagine a person coming into a gun shop and all they know is the guns that they use for Diwali, where they use firecrackers. And they think, oh, this gun, this I have played with in my childhood, and this gun is fatal. This can kill people. That gun that you used in Diwali is for like giving out firecrackers. That's quite a different thing. It may look externally the same. So a child who only knows guns as to be used in Diwali, and you take them into a gun shop, they may think, oh, these are also very similar. So many of the times we are stupid. We hardly know anything. And then we go and superimpose that stupidity over other things that we are coming across in a spiritual path. And that can lead to more confusion. So that is why first we clean what our own understandings, we put right information, and based on that right information, you can go and contemplate. Sometimes it is very hard when I teach in groups where you have to come together and start discussing with people. And pretty much people have no idea what's going on in the Bhagavad Gita. And you are in a community group where you just have to sit and discuss with them. It's quite hard. I remember one day I just prepared a lot, and then I went and I started reading this book with this group. And this author had mentioned how the knowledge of the Bhagavad Gita is millions of years old. That's it. Our group was completely hijacked by that one statement. Everything that I had prepared went outside the window. And nobody was in a mood to go any further than they were just like debating on this point. How can this knowledge be millions of years old? And I was like so frustrated. Oh my God, like this was something in the passing the author wrote. And that became the main point of discussion. And everybody was coming from so many archaeological perspectives and all kinds of things. And the real me wanted to tell everyone, shut up and listen to because whatever they are saying is not from the right lens of seeing what Krishna is trying to show us. So we have a cultural lens, we have a mental lens, we have an intellectual lens, which is already tinted with ignorance. And we bring that lens with all the pride that we have very happily and try to scan everything that we are trying to teach through that lens. How does this thing match the archaeological records? No, it won't, because it's a different lens. So Gita is trying to give us a new lens to see the world, but we are too busy holding on to our past lens and looking Gita through that lens. Gita is telling, free your hands. I'm giving you a new lens to look at the world, but we are too busy holding on to our old lens. And the worst, we are trying to measure Gita through that lens. So that is why approaching a spiritual teacher is important. Otherwise, we will try to gauge the spiritual subject matter through our own tainted lens, and we will never actually learn anything valuable. So you need to put what you are already holding in your hands down in order to receive something new. So that takes humility. So that is why the first quality is also humility, because if there is no humility, there is no way that Acharya Upasana, one cannot worship one spiritual teacher if we think we know. So that's why humility is the first quality. Adam, with to not know is one thing, but to not know that I don't know is another level of ignorance. To know that I don't know is one thing, but to not even know that I don't know, it's very hard to deal with those kind of people. So that is why Adam Bitam is the second quality, because they can be the most funniest in a discussion. Everyone around them knows they are stupid, but they don't understand that. You probably in your family circles, in your friend circles, you have someone like that. When they start speaking, when they speak very seriously and everyone is laughing around them, everyone is cracking and they're like holding their stomachs and laughing because what they say makes no sense and it's utterly stupid, but they are very confident in what they are saying and they make a fool out of themselves by being like that. And it's very hard to make that person understand, boy, just shut your mouth, you are not making any sense. No, he's super confident. He thinks he's making all the sense in the world. It's like the person who has the bad breath is the last person to come to know about it. So the person who has the ignorance and very convinced that he is not is the last person who can be spoken sense into. I don't know why I went so much detail in those
Prabhuji,
qualities. Yes.
I was like that the first day of our class. I think I've improved a little bit, but
I don't.
yes, Prabhuji, when you were describing, I was laughing at myself because it was the same description of myself first day of our class.
I'm sorry. If I didn't, I wasn't focusing on any individuals. In general, sometimes at least this class has a teaching mode where I speak, you hear predominantly, you ask questions, and there are discussions, and I can give you a space where you can express what you want. But there are classes where we just have to let everyone speak. So it can be sometimes. Initially, I used to get more frustrated. Now I have learned the ability to tolerate and also to bring it back to on track. I'm like learning the skill of trying to be a facilitator, not just a teacher who just speaks all the time. So it's hard actually. It takes a lot of humility to be a facilitator than a teacher. That is my experience also. It takes a lot of humility to be a facilitator because as you were saying, Purva, even say for example you were new and you were saying, all I have to say was just encourage you because I might know, okay, you're not fully getting the picture, but you are coming from a genuine place. So then all I have to do is, that's nice, Purva, it's great. So you continue to hear, you realize, oh, I now know more than what I knew. So from this lens, whatever you said may feel like, oh, I need not have said those things because they may not like. So it takes humility on the part of the teacher and the facilitator also to actually continue to encourage. But here I'm explaining from the perspective of the individual, not from the perspective of the teacher. From the perspective of the individual, we need to understand that we need to let go of that need to look big and look knowledgeable in a group. If we really understand, that's fine. There is no problem. And the next quality is renunciation of sense gratification, because we are speaking about a Jnana yogi. This person, as I said, cannot have cravings, emotional, mental, physical cravings. They need to actually tolerate that and give up those things also. So not because, and from a personal perspective as Bhakti Yogis, if we want to learn from this, not everything we enjoy is good for our growth. Even the gross food that we take, even the food that we eat, not everything, like all of us love, most of us probably love potatoes, and it's not the most healthiest thing. And pretty much everything that people love is all unhealthy. Very hardly people love bitter gourd, kale, and these kind of things. Most of the times, what is most pleasing is usually not the most healthiest thing. Absence of false ego. Don't believe the hype, especially your own hype. It's the biggest hype is our own hype about ourselves. And the more we believe, we'll make a fool of ourselves. So that's from our understanding. But for the Jnana Yogi, the absence of false ego is very crucial because everything is about contemplation. For a Jnana Yoga process is contemplation process. If your false ego is very strong, oh my God, you can be taken for a ride, and your contemplation can be tainted by that false ego. It will never liberate you. And awareness of birth, death, old age, and disease. For a Jnana Yogi, he need to be all the time aware of the negatives of this world. It may sound very pessimistic, but I would say it is more realistic, because false positivity is stupidity. Pessimism is to see the problem and to not accept the solution, is called as pessimism. Realism is to see things for what it is, especially on the role of a Gyan. He's trying to renounce the world. So he needs to see the things in an X-ray vision. If you ever go to the doctor and you show your hand and you ask the doctor, see how beautiful is my hand, he cannot care less how beautiful your hand is. He is about, okay, let me see the X-ray and see where the fracture is. He is not going to look in the X-ray, is not going to show you how your skin tone is and how beautiful your hand is. No, who cares? The doctor is worried about where the fracture is. So he looks at an X-ray vision. So Gyan Yogi is supposed to have an X-ray vision of the world. He is not worried about singing happy birthday. He is worried about, he is thinking, because there is birth, there is old, and there will also be death. So he's seeing life through an X-ray vision. So it may sound little pessimistic and negative for a person who wants to enjoy this world, but that's not true. For this person, from the vantage of point of his own consciousness, he is having like a doctor seeing an X-ray vision and you seeing your selfie is very different. So here he is like a doctor seeing an X-ray. His vantage point is liberation. So he is trying to see the negatives of the world for what it is. He's not being pessimistic. So for someone who's trying to enjoy this world, this may sound pessimistic. Sundaran, Hare Krishna.
Yes, Prabhu. So you said these are for a jnana yogi, right?
Yes.
But here translates it as a what is that? Bhakti. So does that mean that these are overlapping qualities that we need to do also as a practicing
Okay. I'm going to take that topic for sure. Still, in brief, externally, some of these qualities may look different, but they are quite different when in application. There is surely a karma yogi needs to be humble, a jnana yogi needs to be humble, a bhakti yogi needs to be humble, but the qualities are quite, say for example, different kinds of silk. The texture when you touch will be very different. The properties will be different. So similarly, the humility that results in the kind of emotions that it produces in a karma yogi, in a jnana yogi, in a bhakti yogi, will be very different. So that we will eventually take up. And about bhakti here, Krishna is saying, it's not just Prabhupada saying, Tarani, he's clearly saying, that's what I had earlier also mentioned. Even though bhakti is given here, is counted as a part of a process. But for a bhakti yogi, bhakti is not part of the process. It is the process. It's the means and the goals. But for a jnana yogi, it is only a means. It's not the goal. For him, merging into the Brahman is the goal. So he uses bhakti to advance so that he can merge in the Brahman. So within Jnana Yoga, bhakti is one element. This is one element from the perspective of the Jnana, because they also have to do some practice, Jnana, bhakti. Because if a person thinks I am God, they are not never going to get liberated. That is why we take a very strong objection towards the Mayavadi process. As long as a person thinks they are there is no question of lack of false ego. There is no question of humility. There is no question of prideless. Nothing. None of these qualities will work with that attitude. If a person thinks I am God, that's the most false ego one can actually have. So it goes against the grain of the very Jnana Yoga process they claim to be practicing when they think they are God. So a proper Jnana Yogi, a bona fide Jnana Yogi, does not think he is God. He thinks I want impersonal liberation. He is attracted towards the impersonal Brahman, but he does not think I am that Brahman. In quality, yes, but in quantity, he does not think I am God. I am that absolute truth. No. He has that understanding. A proper Gyan Yogi knows. That is why this whole chapter is about understanding the difference between soul and the super soul. Again, Krishna is saying that. So Gyan Yogi understands that the super soul is the absolute truth, but I don't want personal relationship. I want to merge in the impersonal Brahman. That's his flavor of liberation. That's all. So they need to have some bhakti. They need to know there is an absolute truth, and I worship because I want to get an impersonal liberation. In Bhakti Yoga, I worship because I want to develop love for Krishna. Did I make sense or answer your questions or go around?
Perfect. It's perfect. Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Okay. Hare Krishna. Absence of false ego, awareness of birth, death, old age, and disease, detachment, freedom from family entanglement. Again, this detachment and freedom from family entanglement is from the perspective of a Jnana Yogi. He has to give up all his family and go to the forest. It's not like Bhakti Yoga. You stay at home, midst of your family, and continue to practice Bhakti. That is the advantage of Bhakti Yoga. Bhakti Yoga. It's not for Jnana Yoga. This person has to give up family, take sannyas, go to the forest. So, from our perspective, if you want to learn, we can see how you can continue to live in the family, but how not to be entangled. Basically, love people fully, but don't lose yourself. When I say yourself, means your spiritual self. And also your, of course, your personal identity, even on the material level, you cannot lose it for the sake of sometimes you may have to, what do you call, adjust and cooperate and tolerate in a relationship. However, that cannot be at the completely at the cost of extinguishing our own personal existence. So that's a completely different topic. Here for a Jnana Yogi, that's not the perspective. For a Jnana Yogi, the perspective is he has to give up everything and go to forest. Even-mindedness in gain and loss. For a Jnana Yogi, the idea is, means when he is going to live in the forest, sometimes there will be rain, sometimes there will be shine, there will be difficulties. He may get what he wants to eat, he may not get what he wants to eat, or he may get what he does not like to eat, something like that. What is desirable and what is not desirable, he may come across. And he is taking it like a pro, not disturbed by it. He takes both, he sees both as same. Whether what he likes or what he does not like, whatever he gets, he looks at it with an even mind. And for us, we can like don't be too attached to gain or pleasure or honor to that extent that we become completely lost when it is not there. So hold things, but hold things lightly so that you can walk steadily. If you're going on an escalator and if you go hold on to the side rail very tightly, because the escalator is moving, but you are holding on to the rail which is fixed. So then it will only trip us. So yes, you need to hold to the rail, the escalator's rail, but not the one which is outside, which is just on the side where you hold it lightly. You cannot hold it too tightly, then you will trip. So similarly in this world, yes, we need to hold things, but how much to hold on to? If you hold too much, then there is depression, then there is all kinds of, we become dysfunctional in this world if you hold on to anything too much. Only thing you can hold on tight is Krishna and your guru's instructions. Except that you hold on to anything which is temporary, which changes over time, you hold on to it too more tight than what it needs to be held on to, then it will cause trouble. Anything that is changing in this world, anything that will be time will take away from us, we need to hold on to it because we have a responsibility, but we need to make sure that it's not going to make us dysfunctional. And constant and unalloyed devotion to Krishna, the same again. For a Jnana Yogi, it's only a part of the process. But for us, we need to anchor ourselves in something eternal. Otherwise, we can be lost in the winds of this world. So, aspiring to live in solitude, again, the Jnana Yogi is supposed to give up everything and go to the forest. So, he needs to like it. He cannot have a Zoom call in the forest. Let's meditate together. No, he has to be okay living in solitude. But for a Bhakti Yogi, association is everything. Maharaj, everybody is praying. When Krishna is standing before them, Vishnu is standing before them, they are praying, please give me association of devotees, please give me association of devotees. The Lord is standing before them, but they are asking for association of devotees. Prithu Maharaj, everybody, because it's a very different kind of a process. So we are not aspiring to live in solitude. We are aspiring to live in the association of devotees. Guru is singing, And means life after life, let me have this association of devotees. And detachment from the crowd. So detachment from the crowd is the crude translation. Amshadi. Amshadi means meeting. Amshadi means social hangout. You ask so many people when they are not like into any spiritual practice or anything, what do they do in the weekend? They just want to hang out with people and speak about any random thing. There's no deeper conversations most of the time. It's just like hang out. They have to speak. They have to say something. And sometimes it's very interesting to observe such conversations. Two people speaking in circles and speaking to each other, but speaking in circles. And this person says, "Oh, I went to Turkey last time, and that particular place was amazing." Yeah, I went. This person does not appreciate that person's experience, validates that person's experience, or feels glad that this person had an experience, does not ask more details about that experience. No, I went the previous year to Istanbul too, and that person told me this, and the taxi guy did this. No, and that person takes a pickup from that, and then no, I went to Rome the previous year. That taxi guy was also like, they are not like trying to live the experience of the other person or appreciate the experience. It's just about themselves. So each one's point triggers the other person's point. Two people speaking in circles for 2 hours, and then they're like, yeah, now I have to go to the next appointment and next thing that they have to do, and they go. So people for their lifetime, they keep speaking on in circles. They're echo chambers in their own head, can never understand where the opposite person is coming from, acknowledge the opposite person's experience, feel happy about the person's experience, ask questions relating to that experience. No, it's just about ourselves. You say something, I reflect not from what you said. I reflect based on from that. I have to, it's just, I am the center of the conversation for me, and that person's is for them. They are the center of that conversation. And if you are a spectator who's a little bit aware, it's the most comic film you can see actually. Like I sometimes go home and I see two old people speaking to each other. It's the most sadly funniest thing. So detachment from Shadi, detachment from just hanging out in a social circle for the sake of blah, 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 just for the sake of croaking like a frog without any meaning. Just have to be in group of 10 people just yelling and just like speaking. That's all. Nobody knows what they're speaking. Have you ever gone to a social gathering? People are like 50 people speaking to each other, and sometimes there is the music blaring and they're yelling to each other, and it's not the best of the kind of most productive conversations that's happening. Ladies are checking what is the jewelry you're wearing, what kind of handbag, what is the brand. Men are thinking about investments. It's more comparisons, contrasts. It's about, oh, you see, that person did that, this person did this. It's detachment from that kind of unnecessary gossip and showing off with other people. So that kind of a detachment this person has. He cannot care less for these social gatherings, because it's not about he hates people. Of course, a Jnana yogi, even if he hates people, that's part of their process. But I'm saying for us as devotees, it's not that we hate people. If you have a family, you might have to go into a social gathering for the sake of keeping the relationship. There is no problem. But can you drive a conversation on a certain level? You start speaking really something very meaningful, people will run away from you. That's the best way to handle a social gathering. Ask them deep questions. They will immediately say, sorry, I just have to take this call. They'll escape. Sorry, I just have to use washroom. Sorry, I just have to fill this glass again. I want some water. They will escape. They'll just throw you like a hot potato and they'll run away. So the best way to handle a social gathering is to have deeper conversations. But you need to have an adhikar for that. If you are a young person speaking to an older person, you cannot do those things. You just have to tolerate it. See, I'm a brahmachari. I dress in a certain way and I have a certain adhikar. I can ask certain questions which can immediately turn heat in their consciousness, and they'll just escape. Like they'll throw me like a hot potato and go to other conversations that is very comfortable for their levels. Only if I want to. I don't do it all the time. I'm usually like pleasant and I just meet them where they are. But if people are really if they are trying to play with me, then I can turn the conversation that they can run away. So you just need to have an adhikar and awareness. But still, here from the perspective of a Jnana yogi, he cannot care about social gossip, all these things. He's not on Instagram, how I meditate, a vlog today, what happened in the forest, as a bear came and what happened, and then he cannot have a thumbnail, like that next to a bear. No, he is not going to do all those things. So detachment, filter out your social circle with sensitivity. Don't just go to the extreme of skipping everybody. Don't become isolated socially unnecessarily. Do it with proper maturity, but filter it out to keep your focus. Even when you have to be physically there, internally filter it out so to keep your focus. And constancy in self-realization, that is, keep asking who you really are amidst all of these things. This Gyagi has to constantly say, not this, I'm not this, I'm not this, I'm not this, I'm not this. So that is the constancy in Adhyatmam. He needs to constantly remind himself that he is here for self-realization. He is a spirit soul. He is not matter. He has to constantly remind himself, not this. It's a negative process, but it's a negatively reinforcing the positive identity. You know what you're not. You don't know yet who you are. So at least you know who you are not. So that's even a good step. So he is constantly fixed in his spiritual knowledge. I'm not this matter. I'm not this matter. I'm not this matter. And then the last one is philosophical search for the absolute truth, that seeking what is eternal, that lies beyond matter. He needs to constantly philosophically search out for the absolute truth, which is beyond all this matter. So I haven't even covered the slides that I made. Really, I just spoke 1 or 2 slides, to be very honest. Probably we have another 20 slides for this section. So see you next week. And we are going to continue this section, but it's going to be much quicker next week because I have given all that I have to speak in this slide. And I'm going to elaborate on few things, touch upon, but that's all going to be much quicker. So I hope this was helpful, not confusing you more. Hare Krishna.
Hey Krishna Prabhuji, I just wanted to say that I liked listening to you today very much. It was very nice.
Thank you. Thank you. Because I was a little unfiltered.
But it's good. We like the unfiltered.
I'm usually not, I don't, if I'm unfiltered all the time, you will hate me. So
No, I don't think so.
at the same time, I also won't get to cover what I need to cover because you can give commentary on everything, but I also have to keep it concise enough so that you can focus on the message. But here the message was like little strong. It's about Jnana Yoga and it's more about detachment. So I was trying to balance seeing it from the perspective of a Jnana Yogi and see what we can learn, because it is the role of a teacher to make things relevant to the audience. But I cannot screw out meanings which are out of the context of the scripture itself. So I need to balance both. I need to make these things relevant to us as practitioners of bhakti. At the same time, we cannot see it independent of the context in which Krishna is explaining to us. Then it will create confusion. Then a devotee will think he needs to develop freedom from family entanglement. They will apply it wrongly. So that's why I'm taking the time to say, yes, freedom from family entanglement applies for a Jnana Yogi differently, for a Bhakti Yogi different. You live in the family, but live detached in a way like you don't control people. You don't become so, what do you call, so fixed on temporary things that your eternal thing is going to be affected. But at the same time, how can there be love and affection in a bhakti process if you're like not going to have those relationships? So that is why I'm saying it's very different. These processes are very different for the different yoga processes. For a Jnana Yogi, he's done with everything. He's socially dead externally. He's a sannyasi. But a Bhakti Yogi is in all ashrams, predominantly in a griha, predominantly in a family situation. So they cannot take it out of context and try to apply it and think, oh, Krishna is saying and Prabhupada is writing a very devotional purport, so I'll apply freedom from family entanglement. I will not take care of my family. No. So that's why I'm like taking my time to flesh it out. So I have both the role of making it relevant to us, at the same time not taking it out of context, and that can create too much confusion and trouble.
Prabhuji, just one question. So
Yes.
then what is it that today motivates people to take up the sannyasi mode of life?
Hardly anybody is taking it up. There is all these Jnana Yogi, all these people, everything is neo concepts. The original traditional concepts are very little. You see the Shamat, he took the 20-year-old Shankaracharya yesterday or the day before yesterday. Kanchi, in the Kanchi Math, he is being appointed as the pontiff. And at the age of 20, he has taken sannyas. He will not have anything to do with his family. It's not like a ISKCON sannyasi who goes and visits the mother who is leaving their body. No, it's very different for a Jnana yogi. It's very different for a Bhakti yogi. At least these of course, the Kanchi Math is not, I'll be killed, I'll be shot dead if I tell this in Tamil Nadu. They're not the real Jnani yogis, they are Mayavadis. And Jnani yogi is not going to manage a math and oversee schools and oversee universities. No. He's not going to he's not going to be a Matadish, technically speaking. This guy is in the forest. He does not do anything. So these people are also quasi.
I think probably the brahmacharis in ISKCON are also probably misunderstood to some extent.
Because we are not like the renunciants in the the way that.
Yes, because there's this.
He has a podcaster mic.
No, but on a serious note, there is this one brahmachari in one of the Pune temples who, like a few years ago, he was living in the temple for 3 years, and then he was kidnapped by his family members and tortured for becoming a brahmachari. And then, well,
that's I would say the context is slightly different. There, the family is concerned, attached, and they are worried their son is being taken away.
If you're so worried and attached to him, why would you kidnap and torture him? That is the opposite direction of what you want.
That is the difference between attachment and an affection. Attachment makes one hard-hearted. Affection makes one think, okay, what is good for this person and how can I make this person happy? And also the question comes, is this person really happy? It's not about that person's happiness in attachment. Attachment is about what I want you to be. So attachment is controlling nature. So that's why attachment always makes very hard-hearted, makes a person very hard-hearted. They're not concerned about the feelings of the other person that they're dealing with. They masquerade love under the pretext of affection. And so the controlling tendency many times can be shown as concern and like affection. Yeah, it's not very easy. It's very easy to say these things. When you have to apply, we need to be so much more self-aware and so much more detached, so much more spiritually anchored. It does not come otherwise. It's very hard. It's very easy to sit and speak here, but you have kids, if you have family members, it's not very easy to, like, it's very easy to speak. It's not very that simple to apply. We need to be that much spiritually anchored. Okay, I have something immediately to follow. I need to get going to the next engagement. Thank you so much. I extremely appreciate your time and attention and your participation. Grateful. Thank you. Thank you.